Curse of Oz, Dorothy's Terrifying Adventure.
Chapter 2, The Forest of Fear, Dorothy and Glinda's Perilous Journey. Dorothy awoke to a strange sound. She sat up and saw that Toto was growling at something. She followed his gaze and saw a figure in the distance. It was a scarecrow, but it was unlike any scarecrow she had ever seen before. Its body was made of twisted, gnarled branches, and its eyes glowed like hot coals. It was surrounded by a group of crows, but they weren't afraid of it. In fact, they seemed to be worshipping it. Dorothy felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that she was in a strange and dangerous place, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. She looked around and saw that the field of poppies had been replaced by a dense forest. The trees were black and twisted, and there was a sense of foreboding in the air. She stood up and looked at the scarecrow again. It was getting closer, and she could see that its branches were covered in sharp thorns. "Toto, we have to run," she said, grabbing the little dog and running in the opposite direction. The scarecrow let out a howl, and the crows took to the air. Dorothy could feel them scratching at her skin, and she realized that they were trying to slow her down. She ran faster, but the forest seemed to go on forever. The trees were closing in around her, and she could hear the sound of the scarecrow's thorns scratching against the bark. Just when she thought she couldn't run anymore, she saw a light in the distance. It was a tiny flicker, but it gave her hope. She ran towards it, pushing through the thick brush and dodging the gnarled trees. Toto barked at her heels, urging her on. As she got closer, she could see that the light was coming from a small cottage. It was nestled in a clearing, and smoke was billowing from the chimney. She burst through the door, panting and gasping for air. The cottage was small but cozy, and there was a fire burning in the hearth. Dorothy collapsed onto a wooden chair, trying to catch her breath. Toto jumped onto her lap and licked her face. "Are you all right?" a voice said from behind her. She turned around and saw an old woman standing in the doorway. She was wrinkled and hunched, but she had a kind face. "I'm Dorothy," she said, feeling a little foolish. "I'm lost in this forest." The old woman smiled and nodded. "I'm Glinda," she said. "I live in this cottage." Dorothy felt a sense of relief wash over her. Maybe she had found a friend in this dark and twisted world. "You're not from around here, are you?" Glinda asked, pouring her a cup of tea. "No, I'm from Kansas," Dorothy said. "I was caught in a tornado and ended up in Oz." Glinda's eyes widened. "Oz," she said. "That's a dangerous place, child. You're lucky to be alive." Dorothy told her about her encounter with the scarecrow and the crows. Glinda listened intently, nodding her head. "I know of the scarecrow," she said. "He's a powerful creature, and he's not to be trifled with. You'll need to be careful in this forest. It's full of dark magic." Dorothy felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't know if she was brave enough to face the horrors of this land, but she knew that she had to keep going. "Thank you for your help," she said, finishing her tea. "I need to keep moving. I have to find a way home." Glinda nodded. "I understand, but you can't go alone. This forest is too dangerous." Dorothy looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to put you in danger." Glinda smiled. "Don't worry about me, child. I have lived in this forest for many years, and I know how to avoid the dangers. I will come with you and help you find your way." Dorothy felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had never felt so alone in her life, and the thought of having someone by her side gave her strength. "Thank you," she said, standing up. "I don't know how to repay you." Glinda waved her hand. "No need, child. I believe that you were sent here for a reason. Perhaps it is my destiny to help you. Dorothy smiled, feeling a sense of hope for the first time since she had arrived in Oz. She followed Glinda out of the cottage and into the dark forest. As they walked, Glinda told her stories of the land of Oz. She spoke of wicked witches, powerful wizards, and creatures beyond imagination. Dorothy listened intently, trying to absorb everything she could. As they walked deeper into the forest, Dorothy noticed that the air was getting colder. She could see her breath in front of her, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Glinda noticed her shivering and took off her shawl. "Here, child," she said, draping it around Dorothy's shoulders. "This will keep you warm." Dorothy smiled gratefully, feeling the soft fabric wrap around her. She looked up and saw that they were approaching a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a stone fountain. The water was crystal clear, and it glowed with an eerie blue light. "What is that?" Dorothy asked, pointing to the fountain. "That is the Fountain of Souls," Glinda said. "Legend has it that it can grant wishes to those who drink from it." Dorothy felt a surge of excitement. Maybe this was her chance to go home. She ran towards the fountain, but Glinda stopped her. "Be careful, child," she said. "The fountain has its dangers. It can also grant curses to those who are not pure of heart." Dorothy hesitated, but the temptation was too great. She approached the fountain and knelt down to take a drink. Just as she was about to touch the water, she heard a voice behind her. "Don't do it, Dorothy." She turned around and saw the Scarecrow standing behind her. His eyes were still glowing, and his thorns were sharper than ever.